but do I have permission to at least just chase that idea and see if it works? And there's only been, I'd say like in the past year and a half, I probably worked with, 150 artists, and I'd say maybe 2 or 3 have ever been against it. And generally speaking, those are not clients that I end up working with again. It's a nice feeling to fire clients. and when I have somebody with that kind of attitude, like I'm okay with not working with them again. If they have
when you have 150 clients, you don't have to be as precious with every single one in the sense of like, if they let you go, it's not the end of the world. Meaning, obviously, you have to be precious about giving good quality, giving service and really treating their art with the utmost respect. But it's like, okay, if this doesn't work, if this is not a good fit, like, luckily there's other artists that
and
are still happy to work with me.
And it's definitely not something where I'll be angry if we try it and they don't like it. Like, that's totally fine. Like, I understand, like, this is your vision. I want you to have it. I want you to have that, executive decision thing. But it's more so if they're not willing to try an idea because they're not willing to try it, that's more indicative of their general personality and their general mentality towards music. And I would like to be around people that are more like-minded in that philosophical sense. And I feel like I've had much better luck with people that are more like-minded in that philosophical sense. So kind of makes it an easy decision.
Love it. Yeah. It's like it's a maturity thing of saying like, I want to be open and I'll give you my idea, but I'm also not going to be so precious about it if you don't like it. Like I'm mature enough to be like, to not be offended if you don't dig it either.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, amazing. So what do you look for in artists these days that you're looking to work with? Or maybe I could rephrase it as like, what's appealing to you about specific artists that, you tend to be hiring, that tend to hire you?
Melody. And I mean, I don't know. I think there's something, I don't know if I'll ever be able to describe it. There's just that I'll hear an artist and I will just be like, yes, I want to work with them. Or I'll hear an artist and I'll be like, meh, and when it comes to, me reaching out to somebody, I have a different set of qualifiers. If I'm doing the outreach to somebody else versus if they're contacting me. And if they're contacting me, I would say probably the biggest qualifier that I look for is that willingness to try things. That's probably more important to me than the style itself. Now, coincidentally, I do a lot of electronic and pop because that's where most of my experience is from that. And also that's when people are checking me out as a mixing engineer and they're hearing my samples, like my portfolio playlist. If they hear that kind of stuff and that's not what they want, they're probably not going to reach out to me anyway. So I feel like anybody that does reach out to me, I think would generally be a pretty solid sonic fit, but I can be flexible when it comes to the sonics. I don't want to be as flexible when it comes to the philosophy.
Yeah, love it. Let's talk about a little bit about your mixing, because your mixes sound really great. I feel like
thank you.
They have a very modern kind of pop sound, but they're also a little. They're not. I feel like you're not afraid to be aggressive with tones
not at
either,
all.
even though it's polished. So let's talk about your approach to mixing. Like, just what's your mindset?
Well, I always joke that I say I grew up on equal parts Backstreet Boys and Aphex Twin. So it's true.
That's a combination I never thought I would have heard.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
okay.
Growing up, I remember listening to Casey's Top 40 all the time, which I think Ryan Seacrest is doing now, and probably has been for like 20 years. But I'm talking back when I was in like elementary school. And then I also went through everybody's. At least in the U.S., I feel like a lot of musicians go through their hot topic phase where they're listening to, Slipknot and all that. And I realized that even when I was listening to like the more aggressive stuff, I was always drawn to the catchiness of it. There are definitely like Slipknot as an example, like there are some songs that are genuinely really catchy. And I think that kind of, once I had that realization that that's what I was drawn to, it made me realize that the actual sonics and the actual execution of the music wasn't what was drawing me to it. It was that I was excited about the idea that I can have things sound super weird, but yet still be catchy. And I've always tried to do that with my mixes as well, with my productions and remixes and my mixes. I always want to I like having a clear sense of what the priority is sonically. And it's different for different styles, but I always want there to be like the listener is knows what to listen for. I'm helping to tell the story by kind of shifting focus sonically throughout the song, like moment to moment. But I also love the idea of having just those weird little things in the background that you don't notice until your 50th listen. And one thing, I don't know if you're familiar with this, this is my like party trick to ruin music for people. If you ever listen to what's that? Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind.
Yeah.
Okay. So at the end, on the end of 4, on almost every measure of the song, except for parts of the bridge, there's this really loud electronic hi-hat going psst. And I never noticed it for the first 10, 15 years of that song's existence. And now when I listen to it, I can't not hear it. And as soon as I point it out to somebody, it just makes them hate life. And it's so much fun. So if you're listening to this, pause it right now, pull up Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind. and
just that song is giving me nostalgia.
Yeah, but like if you listen to it, I mean, we could even pause this right now if you want to pull it up, because it's amazing. It's like so loud too, like it's not subtle. And that song was huge, and everybody knows it. At least every like, you know, white millennial will dance around singing it. But it's fantastically obnoxious, and it never stopped that song from being a huge hit. So I think that was just more, you know, inspirational fodder for me to do weird stuff. And as long as the focus remains on the things that it should remain on, I can sneak in whatever kind of weird stuff that I want.
Nice. Are you referencing tracks when you're mixing? Do you get rough mixes?
Sometimes. I mean, they'll usually send me a rough mix or like a production mix, and depending on the production level, you know, the skill level. Well, no, that's not the right way to say it. Maybe we can scratch that. Depending on the, you know, the mixing abilities of the artist or producer that I'm working with, sometimes they'll say, "Here's a rough mix, but do your own thing. Like, just ignore it because I can't mix to save my life." Or there'll be some artists that kind of constantly kind of go back to the reference mix, like a bit of demoitis. And so there's always a sense of that. But I'm very rarely actually referencing other mixes, like, you know, commercial mixes. I always do just from like an inspirational standpoint and from like an academic standpoint of just me wanting to hear what else is being done now. But it's very rare that I'm actively A/Bing it with another track. If it's a production, if it's like a production stage thing, and they're trying to get the kick drum to sound like this kick drum in this song, then then I can use that as a more direct reference because that's what they're intending that for. But as like a mix reference, very rarely.
You're just using your taste to guide your kind of like your ear until it sounds the way you want it to sound.
Yeah.
Do you do any interesting routing stuff? Like, do you have it all templated?
It's like a spaceship. Yeah. Yeah. So if I can get super nerdy for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mix in Logic, and I love it because it gives me the flexibility. Yeah, it gives me the flexibility to do all the weird routing things that I need to do, but also I can do those last, you know, little 5% additional production things very quickly and easily. I can just add this in the session rather than having to worry about bringing in another DAW or dealing with, you know, miserable MIDI implementation or whatever. So the way I have it set up, it looks crazy, and it usually takes me a while to like get my assistants to like at first to get them used to what it or how the routing is. But I essentially set it up that there are like points of entry at a bunch of different stages along the way. So if I want to do, let's just say I want to do like a volume automation, right? I can do the automation on just one of my kick drum tracks, or if I want to, I can do it on all of the kick drum tracks, or I can do it on all of the drum tracks, or I can do it on all the drums and percussion tracks, or I can do it on the entire mix before my my master chain, or I can do it after that. So like depending on what I want to do, I can make it as, you know, micro or macro as possible. So it saves me so much time if I'm working in, you know, pop music and there's like a hard stop somewhere, I can very quickly mute. I can automate mute all of the drum effects sends separately from the instruments, or I can do the drums and the instruments, but not the vocals. So like the vocal reverb keeps on going through, or I can do all of it at once. I have that flexibility or just one particular vocal delay throw, I can mute that. So it's definitely took me a while to get used to it. I actually kind of adapted a template that my friend Andrew Mari sent me. That was like the beginning of this, and I kind of
he's the dude.
He's a beast. Yeah,
he's worked with Shawn Mendes, right?
Yeah, and Lizzo and Post Malone and a bunch. He was actually I call him my remix pimp. Because my band Cheerleader, we did 2 songs with him, and he and I hit it off right away, and he started introducing me to some of the bands that he was working with, so that way I could do remixes for them. He's great, but yeah, so I took his template and adapted it to fit my needs and my plugins, obviously, and it's definitely weird at first. It's weird to explain to somebody, but I've been using it every day for the past, 2 or 3 years. So I'm very, very quick with it. No matter how complex it is, like I know exactly where I need to go for any move that I make.
How often do you save it as a new template?
Every couple months, I'd say. Yeah. And that's usually, either I get a new plugin that I'm like, oh, I think this is a much better sidechain compressor to use, or that I like this. I just recently got the UAD EMT 140 reverb, and I love that on vocals. And I used to use the Eventide, it's like the Ultraverb or whatever it's called, a lot. And I just kind of swapped that out as my third reverb send on my vocal chain. So sometimes it's just like a new sonic thing that I've been refining and getting into, or sometimes it's just like a utility thing. Like, oh, I've been doing tracks with a lot more percussion elements than usual, and I wanted to kind of like subgroup these a little bit more, so I can kind of increase my flexibility within that.
I'm all about that also, and I feel like you've got it even further than me. I always talk about like how I bust my buses.
Oh yeah,
I'm just like okay, and I'm using also in Logic they have the stack tracks, so I use stack tracks for like all the kicks or whatever, and then that goes into a drum bus or whatever, and then that goes into whatever. But you have like even more steps than me. But I'm all about that flexibility of like where can I automate from, or where can I? So I totally relate to that.
Yeah, and it's been such a game changer. You would think that having a really complex template would actually make things more difficult, but it's when you do the same complex thing all the time, it's just, my mix speed has been getting faster and faster and faster.
Yeah. I'm sure a bunch of clip gaining also in lieu of automation and all that stuff.
Yeah. And being able to figure out, okay, well, here's the issue that I'm having. Is it a volume automation thing? Is it a clip gain thing? Is it an effects send thing? How do I achieve that? And then no matter what that answer is, I have like a specific place I can just scroll right to and make that change.
Yeah. Do you do anything else in your mixing template that helps speed things up?
I mean, things are grouped by instrument type. They're color coded. I mean, honestly, having an assistant, my assistant Julian is the best. And having him, especially in the past couple of months, we started doing a more elaborate mix session prep. But having him do that has been a game changer. So like the one thing we've always been doing since I first started having him do my setups back maybe like last January or so was just importing the files and making sure that everything's there, making sure that everything's named properly in the right, slot on my template, and making sure that everything's color coded and the rough, like the rough mix, reference mix, whatever is in there, BPM's right and not just whatever Logic says it is, because sometimes it's not right, and good to go, And then then I was able to logistically open it up and know where everything was, and that was great for a year, or maybe a year and a quarter or so. But then recently I started doing like 2 more like stages of mix prep depending on the song and the style. The next one being also doing some preemptive clip gaining, so I know for some instruments like my kicks and snares and basses, like I know what types of plugins I'll tend to use on them, and I know what kind of input into that plugin I like gain wise. So what I'll do is I'll have him, clip gain the regions to be at that level that I want, and then compensate